زواج مبارك النكاح من سنتي ما قال النبي هو الصحيح نكاح مبارك نكاح مبارك زواج مبارك النكاح من سنتي ما قال النبي هو الصحيح نكاح مبارك
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to another episode in the series Marriage and Divorce. With me here is Sheikh Haitham Al Haddad. Married. So we covered the steps of how to propose, and we are now at the stage of the actual marriage, the nikah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We ended the last episode on the conditions of the nikah, what makes it valid. We spoke about the definition of the nikah, and we then moved on to the conditions. The first condition that you spoke about was to be free from obstacles.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. We said that there are a few conditions, and they are mandatory for the nikah to be valid. Those conditions can be classified in different ways. Two parties who are involved, and those conditions are general conditions. And some of them are specific conditions.
Okay.
In order to simplify the discussion for our audience, we need to discuss the conditions that are specific to the aqd of nikah, to the nikah contract, not the conditions that talk about any contract. So we will be speaking about the conditions related to the aqd of nikah, to the nikah contract. The first condition, the first main condition is that both parties stops them from carrying a valid nikah.
Okay.
Both parties have to be free from any obstacle that stops them from carrying a valid nikah. What does that mean? There are certain obstacles, if they do exist in the male or in the female, then both of them or any of them will not be qualified to carry a valid contract, a valid nikah contract. We will not go into much details, but I will. First of all, there are some obstacles related to the wife-to-be or to the lady. She should not be engaged in any form of marriage. Okay? She should not be engaged in any form of, again, Islamic marriage. Whether she is actually married or she is in her iddah period. Let me clarify this more. So this is the first condition, that we will be currently married. It is not allowed for any other man to marry her. Now, I'm sure audience might laugh. They might say, what are you talking about? No. First of all, we need to clarify it as a theory, and then we need to say that sometimes people do fall into mistakes regarding this. For example, it happened that we in the Islamic Sharia Council received a question. I know it is an odd case, but I will explain the very common cases. That a person sent us an email. He said that to him, the husband of that wife was involved in a car accident, and as a result of this he became paralyzed. So he cannot function, he cannot have sexual intercourse with his wife. But they want to remain as married couple. He said, according to Islam, can I marry that lady? And she remains married to that man who is not going to have any kind of sexual relationship with her. Is it clear?
It is an odd case, but
An odd case.
it's one that
And
happens.
I was really lady who has been married or who is married now. Now this is an odd case, as we said, but the very common mistake is marrying a lady while she is in her iddah.
I can imagine.
This is a very common situation. Oh, subhanallah. Before I move to this case, let me mention another case that came to us, which means that it is not an odd situation. A sister came with her, said that she has been married 20 plus years ago. She became pregnant. She was about to give her first child. She started to have problems with her husband. And as a result of this, she separated from her husband.
What does this mean, separated?
I will discuss this. Okay, she was what? Separated from her husband. Then she was advised to get married to another person. She gave birth. She was separated from her husband. She got married to another person. Okay? Allegedly married to another person. And then she was again having problems with the other person. She left the other person and she was advised to marry a third person. She claimed that her family is a religious family and they attended the wedding and there was a big wedding, etc., etc. So she married to a third person. She lived with the third person for some time. She had the children from the third person. Sure. So she had the children from the first man, children from the second man, children from the third. She wants to separate from the third man. She now started to practice. She heard some Islamic lectures. Now Islam, is available on media, many courses. People are talking about Islam. So that was khair. And she started to know more about her deen. And then she started to question whether the first, and then they came to the Islamic Sharia Council so we can give them a ruling. In fact, subhanallah, now, while I'm talking to you, I remembered many cases.
So it's not something which is uncommon.
It is not something that is uncommon.
But where do people get
I
this?
don't know whether this is because it is the West or ignorance, but I am sure that because, see, there is no central, because there is no Islamic governance in the West, people fall into this mistake. Yeah, I remembered many cases now.
But where does this concept of separation come from? Because I've never heard of it from an Islamic point of view.
Yes, see, separation is a legal civil term that is used when a husband and wife have problems and they want to go for a civil divorce. As you know, that the civil divorce is a nightmare. They say in Britain that there are two types of nightmare. What is the first one? You are British. The first one is divorce. The second one is what? Moving house. Okay. The second one is moving house. One of the cases, it happened that a brother called me regarding his sister. His sister, he said, she is now married to another person and she had from the other person one child, the second child, third child. What is the question? The question, he said, he is from a country and there is a war in that country, etc. Her father wants her to have a legal status in that country. So in order to obtain a legal status in that country, he got her married. So marriage was Suri. Marriage Suri, what is marriage Suri? A formal marriage, not real marriage.
Okay.
That country is a Muslim country. I said, all Muslim countries, they still apply Islam, Sharia, maybe not fully, in matters of marriage and divorce.
Personal matters especially.
Personal, as they say, Islamic personal law, أحوال شخصية. Okay, Islamic personal law. So I said to her that marriage was an Islamic marriage. She said yes, but we all know that I got married to my cousin because of what? To obtain a legal stay in that country. Similarly, something happens frequently like this in is what? Is a non-Islamic civil marriage. And that marriage was a civil Islamic marriage. Okay, we need to discuss the ruling of this.
Inshallah. And we will continue, inshallah, after the break.
Inshallah.
Brothers and sisters, please come back in a couple of minutes where we will continue this very important discussion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome again, brothers and sisters, to this discussion where we shall continue talking with our Shaykh Haitham Al Haddad on the conditions that might make the marriage contract valid or invalid. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Shall we continue discussing the obstacles that might make the nikah invalid?
Yes, Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. I was giving some examples of cases where some sisters were married while they were married previously. I mentioned this case. Children or 4 children, whatever. And she was previously married in her country, which happened to be a Muslim country. She said that she was married there. This is the allegation. She was married there in order to obtain a legal stay for herself in that country. I asked her, that country was a Muslim country, and she said, yes, it's a Muslim country. In all Muslim countries, they run by the Islamic personal law. So that was an Islamic marriage. I asked her another question. This, you said you got married to your cousin. Have you ever had any kind of intimacy? She said, no, nothing. All what happened, got married to me, he held my hand. That's all. Now we need to see the nikah marriage. The nikah contract is not any contract.
No.
So we cannot say that this nikah was carried out in order to obtain another reason or another aim other than the marriage.
So their intention was not marriage. For the purpose of the real marriage, it was for some other reason.
Yes, but does that invalidate this marriage? If that was in the UK, because the UK is a non-Muslim country, but in that country, the civil marriage is an Islamic marriage because it is a Muslim country run by Islamic law in personal matters.
Yes.
So this is the issue. As I told you now, I remembered so many cases like this. What is the message? My dear brothers and sisters, be careful. If you doubt that this sister whom you are going to marry was previously married and she did not have a proper divorce, if you have just a doubt, again I remember a couple with a child, and the husband said that this lady told me after a while that she was not properly divorced from the previous husband. Now I read in Islam QA and some other websites that al-waladu lil-firash, the born baby belongs to the wedlock, according to Islam. You know, in the story of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and Utbah, we come to discuss this issue. Al-waladu lil-firash, the walad, the child belongs to who? To the wedlock.
So the at that time,
who were identified as a husband and wife at that time. Hence,